Hi, I'm Yoochan. Today I'm going to talk about Pspray, which introduces a new type of logical flow and how to apply it to the Linux kernel heap exploitation. First of all, I'm currently PhD student in Seoul National University, and I'm a team member of Team GYG. We focus on CTF and bug hunting. If you have any question about this presentation, feel free to contact me using this email. So let's start it. For attackers, the certainty of an attack is one of the most important requirements when launching the exploitation. This is because if the exploitation fails, the attack could be caught by the defender. For example, if the exploit is failed, crash information is logged so that the defender detects the attack triggers. The vulnerability may even be patched by identifying the root cause of the zero-day vulnerability. In addition, if the targeted application is kernel, exploit fail leads to the kernel panic, which is very suspicious symptom that defender can notice. Therefore, the attackers are highly motivated to improve the success rate of their attacks. So let's start with my motivation, that why I researched the method to improve the success rate of exploitation. Last year, I found a strange vulnerability. This bug is discovered through syscaller, which is a Linux kernel fodder. I thought this bug could be exploited for information leakage. This is because this bug is typical use-after-free vulnerability, which write a kernel pointer to the freed object. Exploiting this type of use-after-free vulnerability is simple. We decided to use a message-message structure as an overlapping object. Message-message structure has a data, and it has a function to transfer the corresponding data to user space. Therefore, we use message-message structure for exploiting. The process of exploit starts with allocating the vulnerable object, then freeing the vulnerable object, and allocate the overlapping object at the same address as the vulnerable object. And then, if we trigger use-after-free, the data area of message-message structure is overwritten. Lastly, if we execute the transfer function of message-message structure, the kernel transfers the overwritten kernel pointer to user space. In other words, the attacker can leak the kernel pointer. However, we think our exploit is perfect, but the reliability of the exploit is horrible. Testing this exploit 1,000 times, it only shows about 13% success rate. At this time, we thought the exploit had a problem. However, no matter how much we think about it, the problem was not seen. Because we follow the typical process of use-after-free exploitation. Meanwhile, we knew that the kernel heap mechanism was different from the user heap mechanism. And we began to wonder if this might be a problem. So we started to analyze the Linux kernel heap allocator. Linux has 3 different heap allocators: Slab, and Slab. However, Linux uses Slab allocator as a default heap allocator. Therefore, we analyze the mechanism of Slab allocator. I think most of you are familiar with user applications heap allocator. Therefore, here is the big difference between user applications heap allocator and Slab allocator. User applications heap allocator use a heap area, and if there is no space, application increase the heap area and use it. On the other hand, Slab allocator uses a single unit called Slab, which consists of 1 or more pages. And the feature of the slab is non-consecutive. And there is a slab cache. Slab cache is a storage for a specific type of object. Slab cache can be classified into general cache and special cache. General cache represents the k-malloc series, which classifies the object according to the size. Special cache literally represents the special object, such as task struct. Each slab belongs to specific cache, and that is, the slab is used to allocate objects that belong to that slab. Let's do a deeper analysis. What happens if there are multiple slabs which belong to one slab cache? And what slab will the corner use to assign the object? To answer this question, we need to know how the corner manages the slabs. First, the corner manages the slab by each slab cache, and then to manage slab efficiently, Slab uses per CPU mechanism and per node mechanism. Therefore, there is CPU slab and node. Each CPU has a free list page and partial page, and node also has a partial page. And page and partial page contains slabs. And the CPU's free list has a linked list for the freed object in the slab, which is the CPU's page. All of the allocation is done by using the CPU's free list. And then we analyze the allocation mechanism of slab. As we aforementioned, all of allocation is done by CPU's free list. Therefore, if we allocate an object, Slab allocate an object from free list. And what the kernel does if the CPU's free list is empty? The answer is the kernel updates the free list from CPU's page. And what happens if we assign our object in CPU's page? If our object in slab is allocated, then corresponding slab is moved to full list. Then the kernel moves the CPU's partial page to CPU's page and updates the free list for object allocation. Once again, if we allocate our object in CPU's page, corresponding slab is moved to full list. At this time, if the kernel tries to allocate the object, the kernel moves the node's partial page to CPU's page and update the free list. Lastly, what the kernel does if the CPU's free list page, partial page, and node's partial page are empty. The kernel calls a body allocator to allocate new slab. Then the kernel moves the new slab to CPU's page and update the free list. Now, you will be able to understand how the slab allocator works. So let's back to the motivation. With the knowledge of slab, we analyze the vulnerability with the perspective of object allocation. The vulnerable object is allocated in KMLOG 4096. And the system call, which allocates vulnerable object, allocates 7 additional objects in KMLOG 4096. Lastly, each KMLOG 4096 slab contains 8 objects. Did you notice what is the problem of low reliability? I said the system call, which allocates vulnerable object, allocates 7 additional objects. It means if CPU's page contains at least 1 allocated object, the allocation allocates our object in CPU's page. And then corresponding slab is moved to full list, and partial page is moved to a page and allocate less object in that slab. At this point, the important thing here is CPU's page is changed to another slab. How do you think that the CPU's page change affect to exploitation? As I aforementioned, the general exploitation method against UWF is freeing the vulnerable object and allocate overlapping object at the same address as the vulnerable object. However, since the CPU's page is changed, the kernel allocates the object from the current CPU's page. In other words, the overlapping object is allocated to the wrong area. To summarize the problem of low reliability of this vulnerability, the system call which allocates the vulnerable object allocates 7 additional objects. And the number of objects in one slab is 8 objects. Therefore, if the slab assigned to CPU's page contains at least one allocated object, the CPU's page is changed and leads to fail for allocating overlapping object at the same address as the vulnerable object. Thus, to successfully exploit this vulnerability, the CPU page should not use any object. Then the CPU's page is not changed, and the attacker can allocate the overlapping object at the same address as the vulnerable object. Then, how to know the slab is not used? We agonized over this question in many ways. After much anguish, we came to one conclusion. We thought that if the attacker could know the allocation status of the slab, he could solve this problem. This conclusion is concluded to another question. How to know the allocation status of the slab? The best way to know the allocation status of the slab is that the kernel provides the information about slab to user. However, unfortunately, there is no function in Linux kernel which provides the information about kernel. In other words, there is no method for users to know allocation status of the slab. So we thought a lot about finding a method for the user to know allocation status. Actually, we did not think a lot because we already found a method when we analyzed the Slab allocator. Let's go back to the allocation mechanism of Slab allocator. This figure shows how Slab allocates an object. Please track down this red dot. The first pass is if there is object in CPU's free list, it allocates object directly. And the medium pass one is if there is no object in CPU's free list, it promotes objects from CPU's page and allocate an object. Medium pass 2 and 3 is that the Slab moves the CPU's or node's father page to CPU's page and promotes object and allocates. Lastly, slow pass is creating a new slab using body allocator and moves, promotes, and allocates. Can you find the logical flow in here? I'll give you a hint. Let's see one more time. Fast pass, medium pass 1, medium pass 2, medium pass 3, and slow pass. Did you guys catch it? Slow pass is much slower than other passes. This is because slow pass create a new slab using body allocator. Creating a new slab is accompanied by mapping unused memory. And as you know, mapping is very slow task. Therefore, we think slow paths can be distinguished with other paths using timing side tenor. And if slow path is executed, we can notice unused slab is created and one object allocated in corresponding slab. That is, the user can notice the allocation status of current slab. To prove this theory, we simply made a POC code. The code includes allocating kernel objects downtime time and measure the performance each allocation. And compile it and execute it. You can find some of measured performance is higher than others. Let's see these results as graphs. The first figure is the result of total thousands allocation. Even at a glance, you can notice that the performance differs between the slow path and other passes. The second figure shows the allocation from 300 to 400. What we should focus on here is that slow path is executed at regular intervals. This is because KMalloc 2048 slab contains 16 objects. In other words, it can be seen that the measured performance is not caused by noise, but caused by a slow path. Using this discovery, we have created a new exploit technique called Pspray. Pspray is the technique that utilizes the timing side channel using logical flows in Slab's allocation mechanism. Ultimately, Pspray aims to improve the reliability of the kernel heap exploitation. Let's back to the case. It allocates one vulnerable object and 7 additional objects. So to prevent the CPU's page is changed, it needs unused slab. First, using Pspray, we find when a new slab is created. That is, we measure the performance for our location and catch the moment when a higher measured performance comes out compared to other measured performance. At this time, since slow path is executed, CPU's page has a new slab and corresponding slab has one allocated object. But we need a new slab for successful exploit, so allocate 7 objects to fill corresponding slab. After that, since slab is fully allocated, so corresponding slab is moved to full list and CPU's page becomes empty. At this time, if we execute the system call which allocate vulnerable object, the kernel creates a new slab and allocates 1 vulnerable object and 7 additional objects. Then freeing the vulnerable object and allocating the overlapping object to the same address as the vulnerable object. If there is no noise, the exploit will be successful because CPU's page is not changed. So we measure the success rate of exploitation which utilize Pspray. In conclusion, the success rate has increased by about 80%. The reason why success rate is not 100% is due to noise. For example, another process is scheduled and allocates an object during exploitation. It interferes the exploitation. For proving Pspray is not adequate technique in specific case, we evaluate 5 more vulnerabilities. And the result shows our success rate is significantly increased. While looking for a target to use Pspray, I thought it could be applied to out-of-bounds vulnerability. Currently, the exploitation of out-of-bounds have a very low success rate due to one mitigation. The mitigation is called Slab free list random. It randomizes the allocation order when a slab is created. That is, before this configuration is applied to the kernel, the allocation order was sequential from the beginning. However, after slab free list random is applied, the allocation order is randomized. How do you think that the allocation order is randomized affect the exploitation? As you know, out-of-bound vulnerability corrupts the very next object from the vulnerable object. Therefore, the attacker needs to place the target object next to the vulnerable object. To this end, the technique such as Heap is invented. However, after this mitigation is applied, previous technique have become obsolete. As the allocation order became randomized, it became difficult to place the target object next to the vulnerable object. Moreover, since the attacker cannot know how many target objects is allocated in the current slab, it increased the failure rate. In other words, we judged that the reason for the failure was that the attacker did not know the allocation status. Here, we thought we can avoid the circumstance that we don't know how many target object is allocated to the current slab using Pspray. First, using Pspray, we can find when a new slab is created. That is, we measure the performance for allocation and catch the moment when a higher measured performance comes out compared to the other measured performance. At this time, since slow pass is executed, CPU's page has a new slab and corresponding slab has one allocated object. So we allocate 7 objects to fill corresponding slab, just like use after free case. After that, since slab is fully allocated, so corresponding slab is moved to full list and CPU's page becomes empty. Then we allocate 7 target objects and 1 vulnerable object to the new slab. Please note that the allocation order of target object and vulnerable object is unrelated to the success. At this time, the vulnerable object will be adjacent to the target object with a very high probability. And note that even if we use Pspray, the exploit will be failed if the vulnerable object is placed at the edge of the slab. We evaluate Pspray against out-of-bound with 4 vulnerabilities, and the result shows R of success rate is increased. Please note that the success rate, even using Pspray, does not reach 100% is because the vulnerable object may be placed at the edge of the slab. So let's summarize when the vulnerability is used after free. If the system call which allocates the vulnerable object allocate additional objects, the CPU's page can be changed. If CPU's page is changed, the typical use after free exploitation may be failed. However, using Pspray, we can make a circumstance that CPU's page is not changed so that Pspray leads to exploit success. And against the out of bounds, the problem is slab free list random. Moreover, since the attacker cannot know the allocation status, slab free list random hopefully mitigates the vulnerable object and target object is adjacent. However, using Pspray, we can fully allocate objects in one slab, so except for the one case when the vulnerable object is allocated in the edge of the slab, we can successfully make the vulnerable object and target object adjacent. For the conclusion, we introduced the new technique which combines previous kernel exploit techniques with timing side channel attack. Also, we applied Pspray from the perspective of use after free and out of bound, but I think this technique can be applied to another area. Personally, I hope this technique will develop further. Lastly, I think this type of logical flows exist in Linux kernel or else, because many developers do not consider the size channel attack when develop software. So when analyzing the code, please see the code from various perspectives. Please consider not only the memory corruption vulnerabilities, but also side channel attacks. This is the end of my presentation. Please feel free to ask me a question or send me an email for your question.